Hey guys, welcome to episode number 443. Today's Tuesday, so I have another tank tip for you, and today I wanted to walk through all of the different types of aquarium air tubing that you can buy and use around your fish rooms. Now, there are quite a few options out there, and they're all a little bit different, so I wanted to walk through them. First of all, Aquarium Airline is typically a 1/4 inch outside diameter and 3/16 inch inside diameter. That's going to allow you to connect it to any of your aquarium air stones and sponge filters and everything else, right? That's pretty standard. What is different though is the materials that it's made out of and sort of the properties of some of those materials. So the air tubing that most people use and are familiar with is just the standard polyethylene, or sometimes people call it poly Airline. This stuff is super cheap. It comes on 500-foot rolls, and it's probably the stuff that you're using in your fish room right now. Now, this stuff is good because it's inexpensive. However, it has some challenges to it. Namely, when it gets old, it gets really stiff, it discolors, and if you're trying to swap air accessories on and off of this tubing, you're going to need to cut a fresh end on it because it deforms over time, and it's not as pliable and supple as you would like. Now, there is a premium version of Airline tubing, which is actually made out of silicone, and that stuff stays a lot more pliable. It bends quite a bit better. It doesn't kink. And usually it's a different color. Usually it's like a light blue or a light green, but you can find it in a number of different colors. Anyways, those are the standard ones. Those are the ones that people use most often, but there are other types of tubing available. Most notably, there is a thicker version of the polyethylene tubing, and that's usually used on RO units and carbon filters and things that use basically the 1/4 inch quick connect fittings. It's typically a lot harder to bend this stuff, so it's not going to kink, which is a good thing if you've got water running through it. This stuff is a lot better choice when you have quick connect fittings that you're working with, because you're interested in the outside of the tubing fitting very snugly into a fitting that is not going to leak. So those are the first two categories. The last category is actually drip irrigation tubing, and this stuff comes in a few different varieties. There is the poly version of the drip irrigation tubing, and you're gonna have to look on the packaging to see exactly what it's made out of, but it feels fairly similar to this stuff. Sometimes it comes with a texture to it because it's being used outdoors, and almost always it's black in color because it needs to be UV resistant because it's being used outdoors primarily. But it does come in two different materials. The first is the poly, but then the second is actually rubber. And rubber, it works fine for watering plants, but it's something that you probably want to avoid using in fish systems because it might not be as pure as a poly material would be. So definitely, if you're going to use irrigation tubing, definitely check to make sure that you're not using the rubber and that you're using the polyethylene. So my recommendation, if you're going with an air system, you're probably going to want to use the standard polyethylene tubing. If it's a situation where you want to be super fancy, you can always go with the silicone version of this tubing. If you're doing some sort of carbon filter or RO system, you probably want to be using this type of tubing. And if you've got really long runs and you're doing sort of drip type systems and you're not particularly worried about the tubing itself, and you want something that's super rugged and low cost, and you're able to get water from point A to point B for as low a cost as possible, you might consider looking into the drip irrigation tubing. However, like I said, stay away from the rubber variety. So anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.